What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my mid-year freakout tag. I see a lot of people doing this on like book YouTube. I don't really know what freakout tag means, and it sounds weird. So to explain what I think a freakout tag is it's like almost like superlatives for your reading. It's like a mid-year check-in. Uh, you know, I have questions here from other videos that I've seen talking about a mid-year freakout tag. So I have all the books. Sorry, shaky camera. I have all of the books that I've read so far this year that I have physically right here. So I'm going to answer these questions and you guys will be able to see what I think of these books. And also, keep in mind I'm still filming the my lit log. Episode 1 is out. That was from January to March, and I am filming. I don't really have a schedule with it. It's just until the video gets too long to fit on my phone. But it'll definitely be somewhat soon. So anyway, let's get into this. So the best book that I've read so far this year. So this one, there's only two options here. We have Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, banger, read it. And then we have Stoner by John Williams. And it's gonna have to be Portrait. This is like a book like no other, really. It's about this. It's hard to say what it's about. It tracks this kid's life from the time that he's born to the time that he's like midway through college, and it's like the book grows with him. I don't know how to explain it. I did talk about it right after reading it in my last lit log video, so go check that out. I think it's an awfully long video, but if you want to fast forward to the part where I'm reading Portrait, I think I was wearing like a blue sweater or something, but this is a great book. Shout out Zach. Can't believe I just said that. Shout out, yeah, you know who you are. Okay, let's see. Best sequel that I've read this year. I haven't read any sequels, but I have read something that's part of a series. I tend to just read like standalone books, but one that is part of a series is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This is the first book though, and I haven't read any of the other ones. There are 3 because it's the African trilogy. This is an awesome book, and I don't know if it's the same for all AP Lit classes or senior English classes, but most people will end up reading this. But it's a great story that discusses power and love and which one of those will win, and greed, how you like perceive others and yourself, and in a way like just societal change and how people react to that. I think that this was a really good book. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there's a little synopsis on the back. Chinua Achebe's first novel portrays the collision of African and European cultures in people's lives. Okonkwo, a great man in Igbo traditional society, cannot adapt to the profound changes brought about by British colonial rule. Yet, as in classic tragedy, Okonkwo's downfall results from his own character as well as from external forces. So, this is a great book, and if you got out of reading this in high school, then I'd say bring it back around. It's really good, and I was very impressed. This was my first read of the year, so it's kind of foggy now, but I remember enough to know that it was a like a profound book. It's really good, and it really kept me hooked the whole time. Okay, next up we have a book that I want to read this year. I actually have a list here in my book. So we have a lot. I want to read a lot of books. I think one book that I especially want to read that I don't have next to me, it's over there where I normally film, is I really want to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I really want to read more classics. I know the books that I read, none of them are very new. Like, it's not like any of the books that I have read this year came out this year or in the past 5, but I read a lot of books that are from like the early 1900s up until like the 50s and not much else. So I'd love to get into more true classic literature, such as the Oscar Wilde. And then next up we have biggest disappointment of this year. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give it to The Saddest Summer of Samuel S. by J.P. Donleavy. And by no means was this a bad book. It was just, and I should have known because I've never heard of it. I never heard that it was a good book. But I went to a used bookstore and I picked it up. It was $1, and it was really interesting. It wasn't bad, but it was probably the worst book that I've read this year. It's just a lot of, I don't know. I could see what the author was trying to do, and he did it, but it didn't really speak to me. I feel like this is a book for a very specific type of reader, and I don't think it was me. So I'm not necessarily saying don't read this. It's a good book, and it's so short, you know. But yeah, I picked it up maybe because the cover is so fun, you know, multicolor stuff. But, you know, the beginning was a sludge, and it took me up until like page 50 or so, which is about half of the book, to start liking it really at all. So I think that's just my personal experience, but I think this is a likable book though. Okay, biggest surprise of this year. I'd probably have to say, let's see. I'm gonna have to go with the Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a crazy book, and it's like nothing that I've ever read before. Cormac McCarthy has a super unique writing style, which I really liked, honestly. When I was first starting this book, I found it weird. I have to admit, I was like, I don't know if I like the way that he's writing, you know, the no quotations and all that. But then I got used to it, and the story picked up, and even though most of the things that the characters do in this are like pretty mundane, other than, you know, the big moments, I thought that it was like beautifully written, and I wasn't expecting to, you know, find this so amazing. Obviously I've heard of Cormac McCarthy and I've heard of this book, but I haven't, well, obviously after I read this book, I did some like YouTube stuff, like YouTube searching about it, and that's when I realized that this is a cherished book. But beforehand, I really kind of thought that it was like any other book, and funny enough, this has been in my house for a really long time, and I don't think anybody in my house has read it. It's just always on the family bookshelf downstairs. But then I took it and read it, and it was really good. You know, a lot can be said about this, and yeah, It was really good. I really appreciated the way that dialogue was set up here. Thought that was really cool. Okay, now we have a book that I'm scared to read. That would have to be Finnegan's Wake. It's over there. Hold up. Let me go get Finnegan's Wake. So Finnegan's Wake. Here it is. I knew that this book was difficult. But I didn't know how difficult. Like we have yeah, I'm just gonna like hold this up to the screen for a moment. See how many real words you see. Like, that's kind of insane. Not gonna lie. And I still do want to read it. I really do. I don't know if it's gonna happen this year or what. It's like 630 pages of blubber blabber. And yeah, it's just like a very difficult book. I really like James Joyce though. But this is some people call this the most difficult book to read, period. So we'll see. I want to, but we'll see. I'm hesitant right now. Okay, favorite author of 2025. Well, my favorite author of all time is Mitch Albom, which I have not read yet this year. But my second favorite, it's a split. It's a split between Joyce and J.D. Salinger. We have two collections of short stories here. 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger and Dubliners by Joyce. I haven't finished Dubliners. I only read a couple of them. I read Araby, I read Clay, I've read The Dead, and that's all. But both of these are really good. I'm gonna have to say that it's a solid tie between Joyce and Salinger. They're different in many ways, but they're also kind of similar. And I can't explain how they're similar, but it's very conversational, and I really like that kind of writing. And I think that these are just kind of like two different flavors of conversational writing that I enjoy. Okay, next up, saddest book. Well, easily, I think the saddest book so far would have to be Stoner by John Williams. This guy, his life just kept getting worse and worse. It was so, like, depressing in such a great way, though. But it took me like 2 months to read this book because it was like a depressant. You know, the main character in this book goes through a lot of hardships, and you know, he kind of like drags you along with him through those hardships, and eventually the book ends and another thing ends too. Yeah, really anything bad that you can imagine happening to someone who's just trying to like live happened to him, and you honestly feel pretty bad for him, or at least I did. So I'd say that this was the saddest book. And then next up we have a book that made me happy. I have a couple actually. I'd have to say I have 2. I actually did end up reading Matilda by Roald Dahl, which cannot make anybody sad. You know, easy read, children's book. Yeah, this is a great read. I assume most of you know what it's about, so I'm not gonna try to explain it, but Matilda, for sure. And then I think one even more so than Matilda would be The Lilies of the Field by William E. Barrett. This is just like an uplifting story. You know, it doesn't really make you feel bad in any way. And the whole entire time you're just rooting for this main character, and it works out, I'll just tell you that. And yeah, it's a really heartwarming story. You know, it discusses topics such as inequality, grit, working hard, working with what you have. It's just a very good book. And it does have a couple of illustrations at the end of chapters, which I enjoy. Gotta admit. Okay. And then lastly, favorite cover. Oh, well, this is an interesting one. Well, of course, I really like Stoner's cover. That's the reason why I bought it, actually. Obviously, I'd heard of the book, but the reason I wanted it so promptly was because the cover was cool. And then also, I'd have to say, okay, and this is like kind of silly, but this certain run of the J.D. Salinger books that have the stripe on them, I really like these for some reason. I have one other one. My copy of Franny and Zooey also looks like this. So I'd have to say, alongside Stoner, this would be my favorite cover, even though it's very simple. But yeah. Okay, so that was my mid-year check-in. We have all of the books. There's a lot of them. Very proud of my reading so far this year. We've gotten a lot done. And yeah, stay tuned for the next lit log video where I'll be discussing the books that I've read in depth. These kind of give you a sneak peek as to some of the books that will be in there. But I didn't discuss a ton of these books that were in the stack, so you're gonna have to stay tuned for some good recommendations and some warnings. I'll never deter you from reading a book, but I will tell you if it's skippable. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video.